Hello students, in previous session we discussed about the two fundamental that particularly functional aspects of an ecosystem. So that is nothing but the productivity and the decomposition or decomposer. So now we are going to study about the third aspect, that is nothing but the energy flow. The third aspect is the energy flow. So as you know, each and every organisms, they need energy for their survival and to do the work. So now the question arises, from where they are going to get the energy? That means which is considered as an ultimate source of an energy. So the answer comes that the sun is considered as an ultimate source of energy, and solar energy is going to give energy for the living organisms which are present over the world. So here let us see how much quantity of solar energy is going to fall on earth and how much is utilized by the living organisms for their sustainment. So now we can see that solar energy is an ultimate source of energy. So out of the total percentage of solar energy which fall on the earth, only 50% of the solar energy have the capacity of photosynthesis. That means only 50% of the solar energy are considered as an photosynthetically active radiations. How much percentage? That is only 50% of radiated solar energy have photosynthetically active radiations, and it is represented by PAR, that is photosynthetically active radiations. But the plants are not going to utilize this complete 50% of photosynthetically active radiations. The plants are going to capture only 2 to 10% of the solar energy. How much? Only 2 to 10% of the PAR, that is photosynthetically active radiations, for their preparation of energy. That means preparation of food. So the only 2 to 10% of solar energy, or we can say photosynthetically active radiation, which is captured by the plant, is going to be passed on to the different organisms in the earth, and it is mainly responsible for the sustainment of the living condition on the world. So only 2 to 10% of the photosynthetically active radiations are able to give sustainment of the living organisms on the earth. That is the main thing. So now this particular transfer of energy, how it will occur? That means how this particular energy which is trapped by the plants is going to be transferred to different animals, or we can say different organisms which are present on the earth, and how they are helpful in sustaining the living condition. That is the main thing. To understand that particular condition, we have to know about the two conditions of the thermodynamics laws. That means two thermodynamic laws we have to recall here. So which are going to helpful in knowing the condition that how the energy is going to be passed on from one organism to another organisms. Okay, let us know about the first law of thermodynamics. So according to first law of thermodynamics, energy can't be created and cannot be destroyed. So that's why this one, that means the first law of thermodynamics is also called as a law of conservation. That means the energy is going to be conserved. So law of conservation. So according to first law of thermodynamics, energy neither be created nor be destroyed. So energy neither be created nor destroyed. So that's why it is called as a conservation. That means law of conservation. So that means the particular meaning of this law is how much solar energy, that is how much quantity of solar energy, that is photosynthetically active radiations, are captured by the plants, absorbed, and they are going to utilize it for the synthesis of food, is going to be continued. That means it is going to be passed on, but it can't be created. That means we can't create the solar energy, or any living conditions can't be able to create the solar energy. Only they can utilize the solar energy. That's why the solar energy is considered as an ultimate source of energy. So this particular solar energy is going to be passed on to the different organisms. So 2 to 10% of the solar energy, that is particularly PAR, that is photosynthetically active radiations only, going to be passed on from one organism to another organism in a different manner. So here one more thing we discussed, that means one more thing we mentioned, that is nothing but energy can't be destroyed. That is the main thing. Energy can't be destroyed. Yeah, of course energy can't be destroyed, because this is going to convert from one form to another form. It is not going to be completely destroyed. So that's why this particular thermodynamic class says that, and it is also helpful in understanding the ecosystem, that energy neither be created nor be destroyed in an ecosystem also. So now the second law of thermodynamics says that energy can't be irreversible. So that means, energy can't be reversible. That means energy is irreversible. Energy is irreversible. That means here energy can be converted from one form to another, but it can't be reversed back. That means it can't be get back in the same manner. That is the main thing. So here, for example, if we take solar energy, which is in the form of light energy, is going to be converted into heat energy, and this heat energy is going to be converted into chemical energy, but this is not going to be reversed back. Yeah, of course the energy is going to be circulated in an ecosystem, but it can't be reversed back immediately. So that is the main thing. It circulates back later, but it can't be reversed back in an immediate manner. That is the main thing. Now the next thing is, no energy is going to stay in a particular organism forever, which is trapped or which is absorbed by the sun rays. That means how much quantity of the solar energy, or we can say photosynthetically active energy, which is absorbed by the producers, that means which is absorbed by the plants, will not remain there only forever. It is going to be transferred from one organism to another organism. That means the producers are going to transfer that particular captured energy to the consumers. So this particular transfer of energy is basically depends upon the feeding habit, and this particular is going to be create an interdependency of an organisms. That means we can say that the transfer of energy is going to be done from producers to particular consumers is going to be depends upon the interdependency. That means we can say that one organism is going to be depend upon the other organisms for their energy, that means for their food. So that's why the one organism is going to feed on the another organism in an ecosystem. So this particular thing says that the energy which is trapped is not going to be stay in a particular region or in a particular organism for an ever. So that is the main thing. So when comes to this particular transfer of energy, it is going to create interdependency, as we said. This interdependency is also create an interlinking between organism, that is nothing but the food chain. It is going to create an interlinking of an organisms which is nothing but a food web, which is nothing but food chain and food web. When it comes to the food chain, so food chain, how can we define the food chain? That is the main thing. Food chain is nothing but it's a group of organism where one organism depends on another organism for its food needs, and it is fulfilled by eating and being eaten up. That means in a food chain, the organisms are going to eat another organism, and that particular organism itself is going to be eaten by the another organism. So that is going to create a food chain. So but when it comes to the particular food chain, we can observe in an ecosystem that food chain is not going to be remain as a single. So some of the other food chain are also interconnected with this particular food chain. So that's why that is going to create an network of food chain, and the network of food chain is called as a food web. Network of interconnected food chain is called as food web. Is called as a food web. So next we are going to study about the types of food chain. Next is the different types of food chain. Types of food chain. Food chain are mainly of three types. The first one is grazing food chain. Or it is also called as an predator food chain. It is also called as a predator food chain. And the second one is nothing but detritus food chain. And the third one is nothing but parasitic food chain. So grazing food chain is represented by the letter GFC, and the detritus food chain is represented by the letter DFC. So first let us know what is grazing food chain. So grazing food chain, as the word indicate, this is mainly depends upon the grazing conditions. So that's why this one is called as a predator food chain, because in this particular food chain, each and every organism is going to predate over the other organisms. So that's why it is considered as a predator food chain. So when it comes to this food chain is most common in all the types of ecosystem. That means either it may be terrestrial ecosystem or in aquatic ecosystem. This grazing food chain we can see. So that's why it is considered as a most common type of food chain. So when it comes to the grazing food chain, we can take one small example. Example for grazing food chain is, if the grass is there, this grass is going to be eaten by the grasshopper. Grasshopper. And this grasshopper is going to be eaten by the frog. and the frog is going to be eaten by the snake, and the snake is going to be eaten by the eagle. So here you can observe that each and every organism is going to be feed on the other organism. So the first thing is nothing but the grass, which is considered as a producer. So this particular food chain, as it starts with the producer, that means with the particularly the grazing conditions, that is nothing but the plants, this one is considered as a grazing food chain. So and when comes to the next level, that is the grass is eaten by the grasshopper. So grasshopper is considered as an consumer, but it is considered as a primary consumer because it directly depends upon the plant. So next one is nothing but the frog. Frog is considered as a secondary consumer. Why it is considered as a secondary consumer means frog is not able to, or frog is not going to eat the grass. It only eat the grasshopper. So that means this indirectly depends upon the grass. So that's why it is considered as a secondary consumer. In the same way, snake is considered as a tertiary consumer. Why? Because it is going to be depends upon the frog, that is depends on the secondary consumer for its food. So that's why it is considered as what we can say tertiary consumer. So like this the food chain goes on continues. So next one is nothing but example for an detritus food chain. The food chain which starts with the detritus is considered as an detritus food chain. So we can take some examples. For example, if the detritus is the first component of this particular food chain, then detritus is going to be eaten up by the some of the decomposers like bacteria, fungi and detritivores. And these detritivores, or we can say the decomposers, are going to be eaten up by the smaller carnivores. Smaller carnivores are nothing but that means, or we can say for the smaller carnivores we can take an example of the rat. For smaller carnivore we can take an example of rat, because rat eats the detritivores like earthworm and all, termites, earthworm, these are all the organisms eaten by the rat, and the rat is going to be eaten by the larger carnivore. Example for larger carnivore we can take as another organism, that is nothing but cat we can say take, which is considered as a larger carnivore. And then in the same way cat is going to be eaten by the another what we can say larger carnivore. So like this particular chain is going to be continuous. So this particular chain, as it starts with the detritus, this chain is considered as a detritus food chain. Next one is the parasitic food chain. So as this particular food chain starts with the parasite, this one is considered as a parasitic food chain. But this one is not most common in all the type of ecosystems. But parasites are the most important organisms to maintain the ecosystem. So that's why they directly or indirectly interlinked, or they are linked with the different types of food chain. So example for parasitic food chain we can take a simple food chain, and this particular food chain starts with the host and ends at the parasite itself. So the example is human being. Human being is an host body for the Ascaris lumbricoides. Ascaris lumbricoides. So Ascaris lumbricoides is a parasite which depends upon the human body. That means it is an internal, that means endoparasite in the intestine of a human being. So it completes its life in the intestine of a human being itself. So that's why it is considered as an internal parasite. And this particular food chain, that is the parasitic food chain, is usually starts with the parasite and ends, host and ends at the parasite itself. So this much is there about these particular examples. Okay, now the question arises is, which particular food chain will generate more quantity of energy in an ecosystem or more biomass in an ecosystem. That is the main thing. So when it comes to this grazing food chain, this grazing food chain is mainly going to generate more biomass in an aquatic ecosystem. But when it comes to this detritus food chain is going to create or generate more quantity of the biomass in a terrestrial ecosystem. That means it is meant for terrestrial ecosystem. That means the major quantity of biomass is produced by the detritus food chain in a terrestrial ecosystem, and the major quantity of biomass is produced by the grazing food chain in an aquatic ecosystem. Okay, let us know about the trophic level. So trophic level is nothing but, so it is a particular place where the organisms are going to be occupied for their source of energy. So we can define this particular trophic level as based on the source of energy the organisms occupy a specific place in an food chain, which is called its trophic level. So the meaning is, see, each and every organism need a food, so it is going to search its food. So during the search of food in a food chain where that particular organism is going to get a food, that particular organism is going to occupy that particular place in a specific food chain. So that's why here they mentioned, based on the source of energy, the organism occupies a specific place in a food chain which is considered as a trophic level of that particular organism. So this particular trophic level have certain mass of living condition, or we can say living energy, which is considered as a standing crop. That means the mass of living matter which is present in a trophic level in particular time is called as the standing crop. That means when an organism occupies a particular place in the food chain, there it is going to get some quantity of food, and that particular quantity of food is nothing but the standing crop. So the word itself indicate here, it is standing crop. That means the available particular food for a particular organisms which are going to occupy a particular level in a food chain. So now how this standing crop is going to be measured, that is the main thing. So this standing crop is going to be measured in terms of the biomass or in terms of the number. So that means in a particular trophic level, if we want to calculate how much quantity of standing crop is there, then we have to measure the particular biomass of that particular trophic level, or we have to count the total number of organisms or individuals which are present in that particular trophic level. So that's why the standing crop is going to be measured in terms of standing crop is measured in terms of mass, that is nothing but the biomass, that means total weight of a living organisms in that particular trophic level, or in number. So this particular condition, that means the particular biomass which is present in a particular trophic level is going to give how much standing crop is present in a particular trophic level. So that's why this particular measurement is most important. And when it comes to the measurement of this biomass, it is going to be measured in terms of dry weight. So why? Because the dry weight is the most accurate measurement of an biomass. So what is the meaning of dry weight? Dry weight is nothing but the total quantity, or we can say total mass of an organism or biomass except from its moisture content. That means there should not be the moisture, it completely dried, and then it is going to be measured. So that particular measurement is considered as a dry weight. And why it is most accurate means, if the moisture is present, the moisture is going to give a varied measurement during the variation in the climatic conditions. So that means if the temperature is more, then within a fraction of time there may be evaporation of what we can say moisture, so that it is going to immediately reduce the mass. So it is going to vary. That means it is not able to create, or sorry, it is not able to measure accurately. So that's why the dry weight is the accurate measurement of a biomass, or we can say standing crop of a particular trophic level. So let us see the graphical representation of a trophic level. So or we can say diagrammatic representation of a graphic level. So here I wrote one of the diagram which is going to indicate the different trophic levels. So the first level, that is nothing but the first level of trophic level, that is primary producers. That means the primary producers, we can take an example as in plants. Plants are considered as in primary producers. So these particular primary producers, they comes in a first trophic level. So this particular plants are considered as in producers, and the consumers which depends upon the producers, obviously they comes on the next level of a trophic level. So that's why this particular primary consumers, that means the organisms which directly depends upon the plants, they are considered as primary consumers. So these particular primary consumers, they are going to be come under a second trophic level of a particular trophic level system. So this particular organisms are considered as herbivores because they directly depends upon the plants for their food needs. So next is the third trophic level. So third trophic level is going to be occupied by the secondary consumers. So secondary consumers are nothing but the carnivores. Why they are considered as secondary carnivores means because they are not directly depends upon the plants, that means they are not directly depends upon the primary producers, they are indirectly depends upon the primary producers. That means these particular carnivores, they are directly depend upon the primary consumers, they are not depends upon the primary producers. So that's why they are going to be considered as secondary consumers, and they are going to occupy the third trophic level in an ecosystem. So next one is the fourth trophic level, and this fourth trophic level is going to be occupied by the tertiary consumers. As these particular organisms are going to depend upon the secondary consumers, these are considered as tertiary consumers, and these are going to occupy a fourth level or fourth trophic level in an ecosystem. So let us see some of the examples for this particular trophic levels. So here when comes to the producers, we consider it as in plants. So when comes to the plants, we can take so many examples of a different ecosystem. For example, if we take in an aquatic ecosystem, phytoplanktons are considered as producers. But when comes to the terrestrial ecosystem, we can see the grass and different types of herbs, shrubs and trees as producers. And next, when comes to the second level of a trophic level is going to be occupied by the primary consumers. And when it comes to the primary consumers, we call them as herbivores. Herbivores are nothing but these are the organisms which feed only on the herbs. So that's why they are considered as herbivores. So these herbivores, when we take an example, zooplanktons we can take an example in an aquatic ecosystem. When it comes to the terrestrial ecosystem, we can take the example of grasshopper, cow, deer and etc. So next one is that the third level, that is nothing but third trophic level. Third trophic level organisms are considered as an carnivores, and these carnivores are considered as an secondary consumers. And when we take an example for this carnivores, that means secondary consumers, we can take as an wolf, birds, etc. So when it comes to the wolf, this one is going to feed on the cow. So that's why it is considered as a tertiary consumer. So next one is the fourth level, fourth trophic level. So the fourth trophic level, or members of the fourth trophic level are considered as top carnivores, and these top carnivores are considered as tertiary consumers. And this particular example for this tertiary consumer are nothing but, we can take an example of a tiger, lion or some other organisms like wolf and all for that particular condition. So but here the wolf comes in a third trophic level in this particular example. So that's why wolf is going to be eaten by the another higher carnivore. So that is nothing but the tiger. So here tiger is going to occupy the fourth trophic level in an ecosystem. So this one is a diagrammatic representation of a particular trophic level. The organisms which are present in a particular trophic level, they are going to depend upon the lower trophic level for their food needs, or we can say for their energy. But here the important thing we have to note that the energy, or we can say the food energy, is going to decrease by the successive trophic level. That means in a successive trophic level, the food energy, or we can say the energy, is going to be decreased in a successive trophic level. Why this particular condition happens means, because in a ecosystem the trophic level is going to be follow the 10% law. So now the thing is, what is 10% law? So before going to that, let us see who invented this particular law. The scientist called Raymond Lindman formulated this 10% law in the year 1942. The scientist name is Raymond Lindman. This particular scientist formulated a particular law called the 10% law. This particular 10% law is going to be applied in case of transfer of energy in a particular ecosystem. So that particular condition is going to be what we can say discussed by taking one example. So if we take an example of this food chain, or we can say trophic levels, we can observe the particular transfer of energy and how this particular transfer of energy is going to follow this particular 10% law, and how that particular energy is going to be decreased in the successive trophic level. So this one is an example. So when it comes to the primary producers, if we take plants as a primary producers, so these particular primary producers, if they produce the 10,000 joules of energy, so then these particular plants are going to be eaten by the particular herbivores, that is nothing but the primary consumers. When this particular plants are eaten by these particular herbivores, the only 10% of that particular energy is going to be transferred from the producers to the consumers, that means from the plants to the herbivores. So when it comes to the measurement, this 10,000 joule is going to be reduced to the 1000 joules. That means 10% of this 10,000 joules is nothing but the 1000 joules. So only the 10% is going to be shifted in a next successive trophic level. So in the same way, when these primary consumers, that is herbivores, are going to be eaten up by the secondary consumers, so the 10% energy is going to be transferred from the primary consumer to the secondary consumers. That means the 1000 joules of energy is going to be reduced into the 100 joules, and this only 100 joules of energy is going to be transferred to the secondary consumers. And when it comes to the secondary consumers, these secondary consumers are eaten up by the tertiary consumers. When tertiary consumers eat the secondary consumers, out of the 100 joules of energy, only 10%, that means only 10 joules of energy is going to be transferred from the secondary consumer to the tertiary consumers. So in this way, in a particular trophic level, or we can say in a food chain, only 10% of energy is going to be transferred from the successive trophic level, that too particularly from the lower trophic level to the higher trophic level. So that means we can say that from the producers to the consumers.